Welcome back to the deep dive. You know the drill by now. You give us the sources, the stat sheets, the fan theories, the lore docs, and we plunge right in to pull out all the good stuff.
All the critical knowledge nuggets.
Exactly. And today, we are going deep into the crystallized chaos of Final Fantasy XIII Chapter 3, Lake Brescia. This is where everything changes.
It really is. And frankly, I kind of need the structure of this right now. My life is, let's just say it's becoming a bit of a race against the clock.
Oh, yeah. Is this the karate fight you're talking about? How's all that going?
It's going. I did manage to get my 6th Q, which is great. So that part of my life is still, evolving, thank God.
Nice. Congratulations.
But the weight has definitely crept on.
Yeah.
And I've got a fight scheduled for Easter. And suddenly the need to get fit is very, very real. It's a struggle balancing this deep dive stuff with, not being out of breath walking up the stairs.
I feel that so hard. We've been burning the midnight oil on these, haven't we? So many late nights recording, drinking, vaping, just trying to get it done.
Absolutely.
But it's so worth it. The support we've been getting from all of you listening has been just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that. The idea of making this a full-time thing, that is the dream.
A literal dream come true.
It is. Every comment, it pushes us closer. So seriously, thank you.
We live for this stuff. The commitment is absolute.
Speaking of commitment, I finally did it. I got the Platinum Trophy in Assassin's Creed Origins.
Nice. How was that?
Fucking loved it. Bayek's story, the world, everything. Just a fantastic game from start to finish. Now I'm on Odyssey. And I don't know, it's still early, I know, but it's just not grabbing me the same way. It feels inferior, maybe. The bar that Origins set was just ridiculously high.
The dread post-platinum malaise. It's a real thing.
It is. But for now, we are leaving the messy reality of weight gain and questionable gaming sequels behind.
For the crystallized chaos of Cocoon.
Okay, let's unpack this. Chapter 3, Lake Brescia. Our mission today is to break down this critical chapter. This is where the game finally opens up paradigms, the Crystarium, and it immediately rips the party apart.
It does. We're looking at the combat unlocks, some really startling enemy data, and a lore theory that, honestly, it changes how you see one of the main characters completely. We're going deep into the ice.
Lake Brescia is the point of no return.
It is.
Yeah.
Mechanically, the game stops being a tutorial hallway and becomes a real combat puzzle. And narratively, the characters stop being this single, unwilling group, and they scatter. It's where the survival story really begins.
So let's start with the place itself, Lake Brescia. It sounds so peaceful, doesn't it?
Deceptively so.
Yeah.
It's anything but. It's a site of profound catastrophe that's been sort of frozen into this bizarre, beautiful monument.
It's right on Cocoon's outer rim, directly underneath the hanging edge where the whole game picked off.
And it used to be just a normal lake. Its current state is all because of what happened in Chapter 1.
That's right. The Pulse Falsi anima crash-landed there after it was defeated. Its death throes basically released this wave of power.
That locked the entire body of water into solid crystal. It's less a crash site and more a preserved disaster. The sources describe it as stunningly beautiful, all shimmering blue and white, but also deeply unsettling.
And you've got these centuries-old ruins in there, the Brescia ruins, same architecture as the Hanging Edge. It's a relic frozen in time by a dying god machine.
A perfect stage for what comes next.
The player feedback on the aesthetic was immediate. Everyone gets those frozen Arctic area vibes.
Oh, for sure. One person even said it gave them Christmas vibes.
Which is hilarious, but I totally see it. That intense, crystalline, almost festive look. It's such a sharp contrast to the green, organic parts of Cocoon we see later.
And the music just nails that feeling.
Yeah.
The track is just called Lake Brescia, and it's praised everywhere for its atmosphere.
It's a perfect example of the game's whole theme, right? That clash between the organic and the synthetic.
It's exactly. We got some great notes from the composer, Masashi Hamazu, on this. He said the track is mostly programmed, synthetic sounds, very synth-heavy, which fits Cocoon perfectly.
But then he drops in that one single acoustic violin solo.
And that's the whole game in a nutshell. He actually said that adding the violin reduces the wow factor significantly in terms of bombast, but he loved it because it added emotional texture. It's the human element in the machine. It adds this melancholy to all that crystal.
What's also fascinating is that the track was originally, like 90 seconds long?
Right, a really short loop. And just before recording, Hamazu realized that a 90-second loop would get incredibly annoying for a field track where you might be spending hours.
Yeah, that would drive you insane.
So he quickly wrote the development section to slow it down, make it more ambient and contemplative. It's a little peek behind the curtain of how these soundscapes are engineered for immersion.
And this whole atmosphere, this frozen, synthesized beauty with this shot of human sadness, is the perfect backdrop for the narrative just exploding.
This is where they find their lessee brands.
And their focus. That shared, terrifying vision of Ragnarok attacking Eden. And the party just shatters.
The weight of it is immediately too much.
Snow, being Snow, just stubbornly refuses to live. He sees Sarah crystallize and decides he's going to stay and free her. He has to be the hero.
Which forces Lightning's hand. She's furious, she's practical, and she just wants to survive.
Uh-oh.
So she grabs the others, Hope, Vanille, Saz, and they have to run from PSICOM.
And that escape through the Brescia ruins is one of the best early sequences. They find an airship just sitting there.
Which Saz immediately knows how to pilot. One source says he pilots it like a champ.
Which is a massive clue, right? This isn't just some dad with a chocobo and his afro. This guy has some serious training.
Formal, military-grade flight training, or at the very least, an insane aptitude under pressure.
They try this incredibly ballsy move to escape, flying through the plasma beams from the Felsey Phoenix.
Which is Cocoon's artificial sun. It's a desperate move, using one god machine against a military force. There's even this great little lore bit about another pilot, a guy named Cielo, watching it happen and just being in awe of this mystery pilot's skill.
But it doesn't work. They get hit, the airship crashes, and they're dumped in the Vile Peaks.
Which sets up their whole next phase of isolation. Meanwhile, Snow is back at Lake Brescia, alone, which leads to his whole Eidolon battle and capture. The group is well and truly broken.
Okay, so as the story splits, the mechanics finally come together. Chapter 3 is where the game takes off the training wheels.
Completely. You can finally start building your characters. The Crystarium system unlocks right at the start of the chapter, along with the base paradigm rules.
It's the moment the game finally says, okay, now you need to think. You can't just mash buttons anymore.
The Crystarium immediately reminds you of the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X. Visually, it's that same branching path you spend CP to unlock nodes for stats, abilities, roles.
But, and this is the huge difference that defines the whole first half of the game, the Crystarium is super restrictive. It is hard-locked by the story.
And that is so vital to the game's identity. As one player pointed out, this makes it literally impossible to overlevel. You can't just sit in one area and grind until you're a god.
It forces the bosses to remain a challenge.
It ensures a level of balance throughout the entire game.
But doesn't that just take away player agency? If I get stuck, I can't just go grind for a few hours. That sounds frustrating as hell.
It's a design choice, right? It prioritizes that tight balance over total freedom. It forces you to manage your resources. Every single CP you earn has to be spent carefully because you're not getting to the next tier of the grid until the plot says so.
So you have to choose. Do I get this small HP boost now, or do I save up for Provoke on the next level?
Exactly. It's an intense form of resource rationing that makes every single fight matter. You can't brute force it, you have to evolve tactically.
Which brings us to the paradigm system. Chapter 3 is where you have to actually master it. It stops being a tutorial and becomes what one source called a puzzle.
A puzzle you solve on the fly, especially in the boss fights. And it starts with the primary rules. You've got Commando, your main damage dealer, who also stabilizes the chain gauge so it doesn't drop too fast.
Then Ravager, the magic user who builds that chain, which is essential for hitting Stagger.
Your medic, obviously the healer.
Right.
And the Sentinel, your tank, who uses abilities like Provoke to draw all the aggro and soak up damage.
The first big fight tests those four, but then the game immediately gives you more tools. Saboteur for debuffs and Synergist for buffs unlock right after the Garuda Interceptor fight.
But the sources are quick to point out that they aren't critical yet. If you waste time buffing your party for a trash mob fight that lasts 30 seconds, you've just shot yourself in the foot.
You should have been building the chain.
Exactly. Buffs and debuffs are for the long-haul bosses, high HP enemies. A quick debuff from a Saboteur is often way more efficient for short fights.
So the first great test of this whole system, the fight that demands you learn to switch paradigms defensively, is the Manasvin Warmick rematch.
Oh yeah, the tutorial boss is back for a third round, and this time it's serious. You fight it with Lightning, Snow, and Vanille.
The first two fights were basically cutscenes. This one is a real challenge. It's got, what, 32,400 HP?
32,400, stagger point is 160%. It's still weak to lightning and water, so your Ravagers can go to town, but its new trick is the real problem. Crystal Rain.
Crystal Rain is a killer. It's a huge physical AoE attack that can easily one-shot lightning, and since she's the leader, that's an instant game over.
So if you're just sitting in an all-out offensive paradigm like Relentless Assault Kamarov,
Yeah.
you're just dead. This boss exists to teach you the defensive switch.
And the key is Snow.
The key is absolutely Snow as a Sentinel. You have to switch him a Sentinel when you see Crystal Rain charging. His high HP and defense will soak up the damage and keep your squishy mages alive.
But I'm worried about wasting time. Every second Snow is a tank, my chain gauge is decaying. What if I just try to race it and stagger the thing before it can attack?
And that's the gamble. The source material says a well-timed stagger will cancel the attack entirely. But if you're not close to that 160% threshold, it's suicide. You have to switch to Protection Center of M and survive. You sacrifice damage for defense.
So the ideal flow is start aggressive with Relentless Assault. See the charge animation, check the stagger bar. If it's close, switch to Try Disaster, push it over the edge, and cancel the attack.
Precisely. And if it's not close, you immediately go defensive with something like Protection or Combat Clinic. Let Snow soak the hit. This is the first time the game brutally punishes you for not engaging with the system. Fail to switch, and you die. It drills the core mechanic in your head.
Okay, so the Mana Zen teaches defense. But what about the regular enemies in the ruins? What are they teaching you?
Let's look at the data. We'll start with the Feral Life, the Bloodfang Gaze. Enemy, #018. If you just look at the stats, they're a joke. 81 HP, level 10, they're super weak to fire and lightning.
81 HP is nothing. That's a stiff breeze. So why did the sources warn you to take them seriously?
Because they swarm you. They show up in big groups, sometimes 7 at a time, and they coordinate their attacks with terrifying precision. A bunch of tiny hits can still overwhelm you if you're just trying to be an offensive powerhouse.
So it's the game teaching you crowd control. You're forced to use a sentinel not for a big boss, but just to manage a swarm of pissed off fish.
That's it exactly. You need Snow to draw the aggro from the whole school while Lightning or Vanille wipes them out with area of effect spells. It's a lesson in managing incoming damage volume. They drop strange fluid, standard stuff.
All right, moving up the food chain, we get to the Alpha Behemoth. Enemy, #019. This thing is a proper mini-boss.
Oh yeah, this is a tough nut to crack. 20,250 HP and a massive 500% stagger point. If you aren't hammering it with Ravagers, you're going to be there all day.
And it's got 50% resistance to magic, right? So your Ravagers are building chain, but not doing much damage until you hit that stagger.
Right, you need a commando to do the heavy lifting, or you just have to power through that resistance. And the whole fight is on a timer. It has this 4-turn charging power sequence before it enters extermination mode and uses its big attack, Heave.
And Heave will mess you up. The guides say if you're on top of your CP and using Libra, you might be able to kill it before it gets there. But if you don't, you better have everyone at full health.
But there's a great little trick for this fight. A sneaky environmental tactic.
Oh, yeah.
In the ruins, you can use the collapsed walls and stuff to break its line of sight. If you can sneak up behind it, you get a preemptive strike.
Which is huge in this game. The chain gauge starts way higher, and you can hit that 500% stagger so much faster. It's a nice little reward for being observant.
It absolutely is. It rewards tactical thinking outside of combat.
Okay, let's switch from the wildlife to the military. PSICOM starts hunting the party in force here. The regular trackers and drones are pretty standard.
But then you get to the Siconia Velicycle. Enemy #023 in the Frozen Falls area. This thing is a real bastard if you're not prepared.
It's got decent HP at 7,290 high strength, and it spams lightning attacks like the beam gun. And it starts with 50% resistance to both physical and magical damage, which makes it a real slog to take down.
A total slog, unless you spot the brilliant little vulnerability they built into its AI.
This is the one where its defenses just completely collapse, right?
Absolutely. The source highlights this critical window. Its physical and magical resistance plummets from 50% all the way down to just 10%, but only when it's actively charging its beam gun attack.
That is such fantastic game design. It changes everything. You have to watch the enemy animation. The second you see it charging up, you switch to full offense, like Try Disaster, and you just unload to hit that stagger.
It forces you to watch the visual cues. You can't just auto-battle through it. You exploit that tiny window, hit the stagger, and ideally cancel the big attack entirely. If you miss it, you have to eat the damage and go back to chipping away at that 50% resistance.
It teaches you to be dynamic. You have to choose. Do I play it safe and tank the hit, or do I risk it all to exploit that vulnerability? It's a whole new level of tactical depth.
And it confirms the game's philosophy. It's not about grinding stats. It's about solving combat puzzles, one enemy at a time.
Okay, so the combat gets way deeper, but Chapter 3 also just unloads a ton of lore on us. We have to talk about Saz's weirdly specific knowledge and this amazing fan theory about Vanille.
Let's start with Saz, because his actions in the escape just scream that he's not who he says he is. He's not just a single dad with a chocobo chick.
No way. He pilots that airship like a pro, which suggests serious flight training. And then his commentary, calling Primarch Disley the murderer-in-chief, that's not just a regular civilian talking, he's politically aware.
And that awareness is key to the whole Eden dilemma. Saz says the Fal'Cie Eden, the guardian of Cocoon, should be stepping in to stop the purge. But it doesn't.
Which leads to the theory that Primarch Disley, who was supposedly a pretty decent leader before all this, has somehow managed to silence or restrain Eden?
If he silenced the literal god of their world, he has unchecked power. He can do whatever he wants. And this is reinforced by the Lessie's focus. The vision of Ragnarok destroying Eden. Maybe their job is to fix this fatal flaw in the system.
It's some shady political stuff. But moving from politics to personal drama, we have to talk about Hope S-Time.
Hope. Still, to this day, so many people just write him off as whiny or angsty.
And it's so wrong. The analysis we have here makes a powerful case that Hope is one of the most compelling and, more importantly, realistic characters in the entire franchise.
Thank you. Let's just break down who he is.
He's a normal, sheltered 14-year-old kid who goes to school. Pulse is some abstract threat he learned about in a history book.
And then, in the span of about a day, he's thrown into this unbelievable trauma. He watches his mom die right in front of him, an event he blames entirely on Snow's reckless heroism. Then he's branded a Lissy, basically handed a death sentence. Now he has to travel with the man he thinks murdered his mother.
What the fuck do people expect him to do? Just suck it up and be a shonen hero.
Exactly. It's too much for any normal kid to process. He's angry, he's irrational, he's completely lost. We're so used to child characters in these games being these preternaturally mature badasses. Hope's breakdown is completely reasonable.
If he's frustrating to play as, it's because his trauma is realistic. The writing is nuanced, not annoying. It's a powerful defense of his character.
And that nuance brings us to his travel companion, Vanille, and the Vanille hypothesis. This is where the lore gets explosive.
Okay, let's dive into the evidence. 4 key points that suggest Vanille is not from Cocoon, that she's from Pulse, and that she's basically been lying to everyone from the start.
Evidence number 1, the mask. Vanille has this relentlessly cheerful, perky personality even when everything is going to shit. The theory is that this is a deliberate facade, a mask to hide deep trauma, or a desperate attempt to fit in with the Cocoon natives she's with.
She almost never lets her guard down.
Evidence 2, the gesture. When she does let her guard down, she makes this specific, unique shape with her fingers. It looks like a private prayer or a ritual. No one else from Cocoon does anything like it.
Which is a huge lore flag. In other Final Fantasy games, unique gestures like that are always tied to a specific culture or religion. It suggests she has a different background, a Pulse background.
Evidence 3, and this is the big one. Political ignorance. She is 19 years old, an adult. When Primarch Disley comes on the broadcast, she has to ask who he is.
That's insane. Cocoon is a closed-off, isolated world ruled by the Sanctum and the Primarch. A 19-year-old native not knowing who the leader is. It's just not possible.
It's beyond improbable. It strongly suggests she didn't grow up in that system where she's been out of circulation for a very, very long time, like centuries.
And the final piece, evidence 4, ties it all together. The visual link to the mystery girl, Orba Yunfang.
Vanille's clothes are very primal. She's got an animal pelt, beads. It's totally different from the futuristic synthetic clothes everyone else in Cocoon wears.
And who else wears that exact same tribal aesthetic?
Orba Yunfang. They are visually and culturally linked, suggesting a shared past on Pulse. And what's more, Fang knew who the Shiva sisters were, eidolons that haven't been seen in Cocoon for centuries. She has ancient knowledge.
And the only time Vanille drops her mask and shows real anger is when Hope says, Lissy aren't human.
And the theory connects that anger to her defending Fang, who is also a Lissy and who is almost certainly related to her. You put it all together, the mask, the gesture, the ignorance, the visual link, and the evidence is overwhelming. Vanille and Fang are ancient Lissy from Pulse.
This theory is spectacular. It retroactively gives her bubbly personality a deep, tragic purpose. She's acting. It even explains that weird owl that was watching them after one of the fights. It's a spy for Fang. The plot just thickens so much.
And speaking of that fight, the Garuda Interceptor, let's wrap up the boss encounters for this chapter. We have that finale, and then Snow's solo fight against the Shiva sisters.
The Garuda Interceptor's second fight with Lightning, Saz, and Vanille is the real test. 16,200 HP, 200% stagger point.
And the whole fight is defined by one mechanic, the barrier status. For most of the fight, it reduces all damage you deal by a staggering 90%.
If you don't deal with that, the fight will take forever.
So the strategy is crystal clear. Stagger is everything. The barrier only drops when you successfully stagger the boss. The game is forcing you to prioritize chain building over just raw damage.
You need a try-disaster paradigm, Rav, just to build that chain as fast as humanly possible. Then when it's staggered, you have this tiny window to actually do damage.
And here's a great little pro tip from the guides.
Yeah.
If Vanille has unlocked the arrow spell, she can stun-lock the Interceptor during the stagger.
Oh, because it's weak to wind.
Exactly. You could just chain cast arrow and keep it pinned down, extending that precious damage window. It's a fantastic piece of targeted strategy.
Beating it gets you a silver bangle for more HP and, more importantly, the up in arms key item.
Which unlocks the shops. It opens the retail network for basic weapons, letting you finally start customizing your gear, which is huge.
Then we pivot back to Snow for his dramatic solo fight with the Shiva sisters, Nyx, and Styria.
And this is not a traditional fight. The game tells you straight up. They're Eidolons, and they are immune to stagger and death. You cannot kill them.
So if you can't kill them, what's the goal?
You have to fill the Gestalt gauge to full before your Doom timer runs out. It's a test of worthiness, not strength.
And the Gestalt gauge fills in two ways.
Right. You can fill it by attacking with non-Sentinel abilities. The more chain you build, the faster it fills. Or you can switch to Sentinel and fill it by taking damage.
And the sisters have a whole routine designed to test this. Nyx attacks, and Styria heals you.
Exactly. So the strategy is a constant dance. When Nyx is charging up, you switch to Ravager and build chain to fill the gauge. The second she starts attacking, you switch to Sentinel, take the hits to fill the gauge even more, and rely on Styria's healing to survive.
It's a brilliantly designed fight that forces you to use all the new mechanics, paradigm shift, chain building, tanking under the pressure of a ticking clock, but for a totally different objective.
Once the gauge is full, you win. Snow gets the Shiva Idolith, and you've passed the test.
Okay, before we leave Lake Brescia, we have to mention the loot. The game finally starts giving you stuff, including one item you absolutely cannot miss.
Lake Brescia is deceptively rich. You can find over 1,000 gil, a new staff for Vanille, new guns for Saz, upgrade components, and 3 Libra scopes, which are vital.
But there is one item that needs a flashing neon sign over it, the missable item alert.
This is non-negotiable. In the Forgotten Commons area, you have to pick up the Spark Ring. It's an accessory that gives you 20% lightning resistance. The sources are screaming about this because once you leave for the Vile Peaks, it is gone forever.
And there are only, 3 of them you can get easily in the entire game? Why is it so important right now?
Because a 20% elemental resistance is huge at this stage, especially with all the lightning-based military enemies coming up. If you miss this ring, you will actively kick yourself during certain boss fights later on. It's a huge defensive advantage to just leave on the table.
So, Chapter 3, Lake Brescia. Far more than just a pretty ice level, it was a crucible. It's where the player is forced to stop being a passive button masher and become an active tactical strategist.
Absolutely. The depth under the linearity really starts to show. You learn defensive shifting from the War Mech, how to exploit enemy vulnerabilities from the Vala cycle, and you get hit with the deep character trauma of Hope and the massive lore bomb of the Vanille hypothesis.
The game forces you to master its mechanics while it simultaneously builds this complex narrative about Cocoon's government and the secret origins of its heroes. It's a masterclass in mid-game chapter design.
It connects everything. It reminds you that every single character is running from something they can barely even comprehend.
Okay, here's the final thought I want to leave you with. It's about the military tech we just analyzed. The Garuda Interceptor's main defense is that 90% damage resistance barrier. But the barrier shatters the second you stagger it.
It's not just a flaw, it's a huge glaring vulnerability built right into the design.
Exactly. So it raises this provocative question. Was Cocoon's defense technology, which was all designed by the Falsi, intentionally engineered with this profound vulnerability to Lassie abilities? What if the military tech just like the rigid society of Cocoon itself is fundamentally flawed by design.
Were the Falsi hoping the Lussi would find that fatal flaw to help them achieve Ragnarok?
Mull that one over.
That's a great cyclical thought, that the whole system is designed to be broken by the very people it's supposed to hunt. That's a chilling concept to end on.
It is. All right. Thank you again to everyone for supporting the deep dive. Seriously, your engagement gets us one step closer to making this our full-time dream. We pour a lot of late nights into this, and we love every second of it.
We do. And thank you for joining us. I'm off to the dojo now to try and work off some of this recording weight before Easter. That deadline is not moving.
Good luck with that. And with Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Ugh, don't remind me. I still have to figure out if it's actually bad or if I'm just grumpy. That's a deep dive for another day, I'm sure.
Focus on the physical paradigm shift first, my friend. We will be back soon to plunge into the vile peaks and see where Lightning's fractured crew ends up. Until then, keep digging into the sources.
And consider the implications.
Always.
It's been, what, over 15 years since it came out worldwide?
Something like that, yeah. Launched the whole HD era for the franchise, really.
And people are still arguing about it with the exact same passion as they did back in 2010. It is wild.
Oh, it's absolutely true. We've been digging through a mountain of, recent fan stuff, Reddit threads, retrospectives, old game FAQs, debates, and the core tension is exactly the same.
Right.
You've got one camp that's like, this is an underrated masterpiece, the battle system is genius, the graphics are still gorgeous.
And then you have the other side.
And then you have the other side, yeah. The ones who call it a fundamentally broken linear slog. The infamous hallway simulator.
The hallway simulator, a meme that will outlive us all.
Probably. Some even say it kicked off a dark period for the whole brand.
So that's our mission for you today. We're going to wade into that minefield. We're taking all this fan energy, the good and the bad, to figure out why this game is still such a lightning rod.
And we want to see if the good parts, things people praise, ever actually make up for the big structural problems that everyone complains about.
We're talking the linearity, the combat, the let's say, convoluted story, all of it. We're going to try and figure out its real place in the Final Fantasy pantheon.
And we're better to start than the very beginning, the opening cinematic.
You'd think that would be simple, right?
You would think. But no. Even 15 years later, fans are at each other's throats about whether FFX3's opening is any good compared to the classics. It's like the game started out already on the defensive.
And this is where the fan rivalry gets really, really spicy. The go-to comparison, it's always Final Fantasy VII, right? It's like a reflex.
And the classic argument is that 7 wins just on the music alone. That opening theme, the bombing mission theme, descending into Midgar. It's just burned into people's brains. It's pure nostalgia.
It's iconic. You can't separate the visuals from that sound.
Exactly. But that's where the counter-argument comes in, the anti-nostalgia take. We saw a bunch of people arguing that, your memory is clouding your judgment.
Oh, I saw that one quote. Oh, how nostalgia clouds the mind. Brutal.
Super brutal. But their point was, if you actually look at the FFVII opening CG, objectively, it's kind of nothing special at all. It's a train pulling into a station, a slow pan over a city. Take away the music, and visually, it's pretty passive.
Which, if you strip away 15 years of cultural weight, is kind of a fair point. And that's the whole defense for FFX5's opening, right? That it's just a better spectacle.
That's the argument. That stuff actually happens right away. You see Lightning, the protagonist, and she immediately shows how badass she is.
Yeah, you're not waiting around. You're thrown right into a riot. A train is derailing. People are using magic and flipping through the air. It's pure action from frame one. Spectacle first, contest later.
But then this brings up the real debate. The community doesn't even agree that Ceph is the gold standard anymore. When you look at these long-term discussions, there's another game that almost always gets crowned as the best opening.
It's Final Fantasy VIII, isn't it?
It's always 8, followed very, very closely by Final Fantasy X.
The case for VIII is so strong. That cinematic with Liberi Fatali blasting over Squall and Cypher's duel. I mean, that was just pure hype. Technologically, it was mind-blowing for the PS1.
Oh, for sure. Though it's funny, one person made the point that even that amazing opening has a tiny flaw.
That's happening.
They said when you actually play the game, you realize that epic music and that crazy duel, it doesn't really fit the tone of what's happening in the story right at that moment. It's all flash, a little disconnected from the more grounded, personal plot that starts right after.
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
And FFX, on the other hand, gets ranked so high because it does both. It has spectacle with Sin attacking Zen or Can, but it also lands the emotional stakes immediately.
Right, with Titus standing in the ruins talking to you, the player. This is my story. It just hooks you right in and grounds you from the very first second.
Yeah, it's narrative gold.
But the really fascinating thing I saw was this meta-commentary on the structure of these openings. A fan pointed out that if the FFVII opening was really nothing special, then Sony wouldn't have had them remake it for a PS3 tech demo.
Good point.
And Square Enix definitely wouldn't have reused the structural foundation for FF3. They're saying even if 13's was all about spectacle, the devs still felt like they had to copy the homework of the classics.
So FFX3 kicks off with this incredible HD cinematic experience. It looks amazing, but it's immediately bogged down by this baggage, this fan expectation of what an FF opening should be.
And the real problem, the one that defines this entire game's reputation, starts the second that cinematic ends and they finally give you the controller.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the elephant in the cocoon. The linearity problem.
Yes, the hallway simulator. This is, without a doubt, the single biggest, most damaging critique of the game.
The initial pacing gets absolutely savaged in all the sources. People were citing, like, hard numbers.
They were. Things like, the game is just walk down a hall, enter a cutscene, enter a battle, spam auto attack, rinse and repeat.
For hours.
For hours and hours. And the timeline is the real killer here. People say it takes 30, sometimes even 40 hours before the game gets good, before you even get your full party or control over the combat system.
40 hours. That's an entire JRPG.
Yeah.
You could beat Chrono Trigger in that time. You could probably finish a rushed playthrough of Final Fantasy VII in 40 hours.
It's an insane amount of time.
Yeah.
And it leads directly to what people call the tutorial complaint.
It feels like the world's longest tutorial.
Exactly. The game holds your hands so tightly for so long that the entire first half just feels like one drawn-out tutorial instead of an actual journey. I saw one person say the game works very hard on stopping me from actually playing the game.
That perfectly captures it. It feels like the game design itself is constantly overruling the player. It's just shuffling you from one corridor to the next battle to the next cutscene.
That lack of player agency is the key. It's not just that the tutorial is long, it's that you have no meaningful choices, no exploration.
And this is where we have to talk about the big comparison everyone makes, Final Fantasy X versus 13.
The inevitable comparison.
Because both games are, let's be honest, very linear for the series. But FFX gets a pass, and FFX3 gets destroyed for it. And the sources are really clear on why.
It all comes down to world depth, how the story is baked into that linear path. I mean, yes, FFX is a straight line from Besaid to Luca to the Moonflow,
Totally.
but every single one of those locations has depth. They have a story. They aren't just pretty tunnels full of monsters.
So break that down for us. What makes FFX's hallways feel like a journey?
Okay, so think about it. When you get to Besaid, you're immediately learning about the island's culture, the town, what a summoner is. Then you hit Luca, and bam, it's this huge city with a blitzball stadium. There are crowds, there's political stuff happening.
The Alped are there. You get that concept.
Exactly. Then the Moonflow, where you learn about the Fireflies and their spiritual meaning. Later, you see the horror of the Albed home being destroyed. These places are memorable because they are part of Spira's culture and history, and they have little side paths and secrets, even on a linear route.
Which is the total opposite of FFXD before Chapter 11.
Complete opposite. The areas in Katoon are almost universally described as unmemorable and devoid of meaningful things to interact with.
They look amazing, though. Everyone agrees on the graphics.
Oh, they're beautiful, but they're just pretty areas. They're just aesthetic tunnels connecting fights with no social or historical context to them.
And that empty feeling is made so much worse by the lack of NPCs.
That's a huge one. There are almost no non-playable characters to talk to, especially in the first half of the game.
In any other Final Fantasy, talking to NPCs is how you learn about the world.
Yeah.
You find out what's going on, you get a sense of the culture.
FFX3 just strips all of that away. It makes the world of Cocoon feel, as one person put it, cold, sterile, and lifeless. It's just a backdrop for the main characters, not a living world.
So the problem isn't the straight line itself, it's that the line is empty.
That's it, exactly. One critic said the issue wasn't linearity, but the lack of gameplay variety, which works with the linearity. It took away all the classic JRPG stuff towns, mini games, talking to people, and it didn't add enough to make up for it.
And this all builds up to this massive sense of disappointment that kind of explodes when you finally get to the so-called open world part.
Feature 11, the promised land of Grand Pulse and the Arcalate Steppe.
And it is huge. I mean, physically, it's a huge open area. People compare it to the Calmlands from
Yeah.
FFX. This should have been the big payoff for slogging through 30 hours of hallways.
It should have been.
So why do people still say it's a letdown?
Because a big empty field is still an empty field.
Huh.
The size is there, but the content inside it is just monotonous. The side quests are almost all battle content and nothing more. You just go to a stone, get a hunt, go kill a specific monster. That's it.
No chocobo racing, no card
Yeah.
games, no hidden towns with side stories.
Nothing. It's a huge area, but it doesn't have the historical weight of the Calmlands, which was this important historical battlefield. The Arcalypte Steppe is just a place with bigger monsters.
Though, to be fair, the sources do point out some really amazing late game areas.
Oh, yeah, there are exceptions that show what the game could have been, like Yasha's Massif, with all the ruins and lore. Tajin's Tower is amazing. People called it the most fun area in the game with the moving statues and stuff.
And Orba.
And Orba, yeah.
Yeah.
Described as a haunting ghost town that looks like something from The Last of Us. Those moments are incredible, and they prove the art team was brilliant. It was the overall structure that failed them.
And the final nail in the coffin for the world design is the travel system. Once you can go back, how does it work? Let's compare FFX and FFX3 again.
Okay, so in FFX, you get the airship, and it's a hub. You can fly almost anywhere, revisit 80 or 90% of the old areas, and even find new secret spots. It opens the world up.
And FFX3?
FXX3 does the opposite. You get these teleport points, but you have to unlock them one by one, and they mostly just let you go back to the later open areas, like the steppe.
So all those hallways from the first 30 hours.
Gone, locked out. About 80 to 90% of the game's environments become totally inaccessible. It's a system designed to keep you moving forward, even when it's pretending to let you be free.
Wow. Okay, so moving from the world itself to how you fight in it. The paradigm shift system. This might be the most divided topic of all.
It really is. For some people, this combat system is the single reason the game is a masterpiece worth defending. For others, it's just a pile of wasted potential.
Let's break down the mechanics. So you're not controlling one character's attacks. You're switching the entire party's jobs or classes on the fly.
Right. You set up these combinations called paradigms. So you might have like a defensive one with a sentinel taking hits and 2 medics healing. Then, with one button press, you switch to an all-out attack formation with 3 ravagers to build up the enemy's chain gauge.
It makes you more of a strategic coach than a button masher.
When it works, yeah, it's all about that chain gauge. You use ravagers to build the chain fast, and once the enemy is staggered, once that gauge is full and they're vulnerable, you have to instantly switch to a commando-heavy paradigm to deal massive damage. It can be incredibly fluid and tactical. One source called it one of the best battling systems in the franchise.
But there's always a but.
There's always a but. Critics point to the little pause, the slight hiccup that happens every time you switch paradigms. It just breaks the flow for some people.
But the real meat of the complaint is the auto battle issue.
Oh yeah, the auto battle critique. This is the big one. Critics say the game relies so heavily on the auto select for attacks that you're just spamming the confirm button and occasionally switching presets.
I've heard it called a glorified mobile game auto battler.
That's the one. Or that the system made player input minimal. That it basically plays itself, especially in the first half of the game.
But the defenders have a really strong counter to that, don't they?
They do. Their whole argument is, if you think it's just auto battle, you're playing it wrong. Or, more accurately, the game hasn't forced you to play it right yet.
I saw a quote that was like, if you beat the whole game, letting it basically auto battle, you intentionally made it more boring than it had to be.
That's the core of the defense. They argue that anyone just using the basic commando, ravager, medic setup is missing the entire point of the system. The real depth is in the other 2 roles.
The synergist and the saboteur.
The buffs and the debuffs. The system has incredible depth, but it's hidden, and it only becomes absolutely essential in the hard endgame content, like the optional hunts.
So let's get into the weeds here, because this is important. How do those 2 roles change everything?
Okay, so the synergist is your buffer. They cast things like Haste, which is huge, it speeds up your whole party, Protect, which cuts physical damage, essential stuff.
And the saboteur does the opposite.
Right, they're debuffing the enemy. Poison, which just drains their health. Deshell, which makes them super weak to magic. And in FFXC3, buffs and debuffs are like ridiculously strong.
So it's not just a minor advantage, it's game-changing.
It's mandatory for the hard fights. If you hit a huge enemy with the Deshell and Deprotect, your Ravagers will stagger it way, way faster, and your Commandos will do insane damage. The time you save by casting one good debuff is massive.
So it's about being a smart coach, not a fast button presser. You're calling the play, telling your team what buffs or debuffs to use, or telling your sentinel to tank a huge hit.
Exactly. It's a system for decision makers. The problem is that the game hides its own complexity for about 30 hours.
Which leads right into the progression system, the Crystarium.
Ugh. The Crystarium, this is where the design really stumbles. Because of how linear everything is, all the characters end up feeling monotonous and uniform for most of the game.
And the Crystarium itself is almost universally called a worse version of the sphere grid from FFF.
A much worse version. It looks cool, it fits a crystal theme, but it's so rigid and linear.
What makes it so unsatisfying compared to the sphere grid?
Well, the sphere grid gave you this great feeling of progression. You get a bunch of sphere levels at once, move your character across the board, and get this satisfying sound and visual effect. You felt powerful.
But the Crystarium is different.
The Crystarium is just horribly boring.
Yeah.
You get these tiny little bits of points after every fight, and you spend them on single tiny stat boosts, plus 2 strength, plus 5 HP. It feels like doing paperwork. There's no psychological reward.
And it's so laborious, right? Because eventually every character gets all 6 rolls, and each roll has its own separate grid.
Yes. You're constantly flipping between 6 different grids for 6 different characters. It's a huge time sink for very little meaningful customization.
And this feeds right into the difficulty spikes people complain about.
Totally. Because the progression is so slow and tedious, if you don't grind it out, you'll suddenly run into some random monster on the Arculte step that just wipes the floor with you.
Yeah.
It makes the grinding feel mandatory and frustrating, not rewarding.
And what about the summons? The Eidolons?
Visually spectacular, mechanically. Getting them out is a pain. They only show up when you're almost dead, and their impact in battle is often pretty underwhelming.
The one-button press syndrome again.
Yep. More spectacle over substance. So you have this combat system that's either a deep strategic masterpiece or a boring auto-battler, depending on how long you're willing to suffer to unlock its potential.
And now we have to talk about the thing that probably lost even more fans than the linearity, the story.
Oh boy. The lore. This is an area where almost everyone, even defenders of the gameplay, seems to agree. The story execution is all over the place.
It's described as being so confusing, it makes other convoluted JRPGs look simple.
And the main problem is the info dumping. The game starts and immediately just vomits terminology at you.
Fal'Cie, Lat'Cie, Pulse, Cocoon, Seath.
Right, all these words, and it doesn't bother to explain them organically. A Fal'Cie is basically a crystal god. They curse humans, turning them into Lat'Cie and giving them a mission, a focus. If you fail, you become a monster called a Seath.
That's the core of the plot. But the game doesn't tell you that in a conversation.
No, it info dumps into a log entry. You are literally forced to stop playing the game and go read pages of text in the dialogue just to understand what is happening and why the characters are so terrified.
It's such a bizarre choice.
Yeah.
One player said they waste cutscenes showing you something spectacular and then info dump the important lore into a log entry.
It completely breaks the immersion. And on top of that, another huge flaw is that all the important emotional stuff seems to have happened before the game even starts.
Like Lightning's fight with her sister Sarah, or Vanille causing everything.
It's all backstory that you only see in flashbacks. It makes it really hard to care about the character's goal of getting back to normal. When you never saw what normal was, you don't know what they lost.
So let's break down the cast, because they get some really polarized reactions. Starting with the star, Lightning.
The first official female main protagonist of the series. A huge deal.
And for some, she's an icon. But a lot of critics just see her as a cold, no-nonsense soldier type. A female Cloud.
The main complaint is that she's just stoic for too long. If her main trait is being emotionally distant and you spend 30 hours running down a hallway with her, it's hard to connect.
Then you've got Snow.
Oh, Snow. Widely called one of the least interesting and memorable characters. He's just yelling about being a hero and saving Sarah for the entire game. He doesn't really change. A lot of people found him more annoying than heroic.
But then there's Saz. Everyone seems to love Saz.
Saz is the exception. Consistently called the best character writing-wise. His story about being a father trying to save his son, Daj, is the most human and relatable part of the entire game.
And Hope probably has the biggest character arc.
For sure. He grows from this whiny kid into a capable young man, and his little brother-big sister relationship with Lightning is where she shows the most depth. It's when she's acting as his mentor that you finally see a crack in her soldier persona.
Then you have Vanille and Fang, who are kind of a package deal.
Yeah, they have perfect synergy, they're central to the big lore reveals, and serve as a nice parallel to Lightning and Sarah's sister relationship.
So a mixed bag for the heroes. But the villains, the consensus seems pretty unified on them.
And it is not good. They are considered a massive critical failure.
Starting with the main bad guy, Galen Disley, who is secretly the Falsy Barthandelus.
Labeled by many as the worst villain in FF history, he's just a bland, boring old man for most of the game. But his motive is what really tanks the entire narrative.
And this is the largest conundrum people have. His goal is to cause enough death and destruction in Cocoon to summon back the Maker, this mysterious god.
Why is that so confusing for people? Because it's completely abstract and has nothing to do with the hero's personal journey.
Right. The party is just trying to survive and break their curse. This villain is trying to orchestrate a cosmic suicide pact for reasons that are never adequately explained.
You can't hate him, you can't sympathize with him, you can't even really understand him. He's just a bad villain.
And they wasted so much potential on other, better antagonists, like Jill Nabat.
Yes. The Rose with Thorns military leader, she was so much more interesting and grounded, a genuinely hateable person. And the game just threw away midway through the story.
For what? More confusing monologues from the Pope-looking guy?
Pretty much. Even Sid is a letdown. He's an antagonist for once, which is a cool twist, but he's described as forgettable in every way. The story just completely fumbles its villains.
Okay, so after that whole mess, Square Enix decided to make 2 more games. They were clearly trying to fix the problems of the first one.
They were, and that's where the trilogy gets really interesting and messy. Final Fantasy XIII is generally seen as the best of the sequels, the most engaging and fun.
And it directly addressed the biggest complaint.
It did. It improved the battle system a lot, and most importantly, it fixed the linearity. The world was way more open.
But in fixing that, they broke other things. They cut the cast down to just 2 playable characters, Sarah and Noel. And they introduced the cheap time-traveling trope, which made the already confusing story even more convoluted.
But XIII had some major wins. The villain, Caius Ballad, is considered one of the best in the modern series. A really compelling, tragic character. And it added monster taming, which was super popular and gave back some of that player choice the first game lacked.
And then there's the grand finale. Lightning returns.
Divisive doesn't even begin to cover it.
It's a totally different game. A single-character action RPG focused only on lightning, with this really cool Garb schemata system for combat.
But it introduced the one mechanic that a huge portion of RPG fans absolutely despise.
The Doom Clock.
The Doom Clock. A constant ticking time limit for the entire game. People hate it. It creates so much anxiety and kills any desire for casual exploration. It's like Majora's Mask, but for the whole game.
And the story was apparently a mess, too.
Yeah, a cliché attempt to give everyone a happy ending that felt rushed and forced.
But, okay, after all that negativity, we have to get to the 2 things that almost everyone, even the harshest critics, agrees FFX3 absolutely nailed.
The technical triumphs, and number 1, without a doubt, is the graphics and visuals.
The game is still a marvel.
It's undisputed. This was the first true HD Final Fantasy, and it still holds up incredibly well today. It really set the visual standard for FFXV, 7 Remake, all the modern games.
The art direction is gorgeous. That Frutiger arrow style, the seamless transitions from gameplay to cutscene, it was a visual masterpiece.
No question. And the second area of unanimous praise is the music.
The soundtrack by Masashi Hamauzu is incredible. People call it his magnus opus. It's got this unique sound, very different from Nobuo Uematsu's work.
Yeah, lots of bright synths, strings. It's very distinct. And specific tracks get called out all the time. The battle theme, Blinded by Light, is an all-timer. Sarah's theme is beautiful. The music just elevates everything.
Even the soundtrack has that one bizarre, baffling decision.
Oh, God. The Leona Lewis song.
My hams. The ending credits. It was befuddling then. It's still befuddling now.
It's the perfect little summary of the whole game's problem, isn't it?
How so?
You have this epic, high-concept sci-fi fantasy game, and it ends with a mainstream British pop ballad from 2009. It's this moment of extreme tonal dissonance. It's a high-quality, technically proficient thing just jammed into a place where it doesn't thematically belong at all.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, and before we wrap up, we have to mention the modern accessibility issue.
Right, it's weirdly hard to play this trilogy today. It's like the only mainline series not easily available on a PS5.
And the PC port is a nightmare. You need a ton of mods and fixes just to get it to run properly. It's a shame that a game that looks this good is so hard to preserve and play.
The Xbox Series X version seems to be the best bet, but yeah, it's not ideal.
So after all of that, what's the final verdict? Our deep dive really confirms it's a game of massive disconnects.
A huge gap between its beautiful, polished production values, the graphics, the music, and its restrictive, frustrating gameplay loop.
You have a combat system that is, at its core, brilliant and tactical. But it's chained to a horribly slow and unsatisfying progression system.
And it's all set in a world that strips away the very things that make a JRPG feel alive. Exploration, towns, NPCs.
In a story that makes you read a textbook to understand what's going on.
It's a high-concept failure of execution. It's trapped in this argument between its technical brilliance and its fundamental design flaws.
Which brings us to the final question that fans are still asking. The Paradigm combat system is great once you finally unlock it. The game is still gorgeous. So should Square Enix try this combat style again, but in a world that's actually, well designed?
With towns and side quests and pacing that respects the player's time.
Yeah. Or should FFX30 just be remembered as this fascinating, tragic misstep? A beautiful experiment that failed because it forgot to let you actually play it.
It's the ultimate example of a game that succeeded at its spectacle but failed its structure.
Moving on from all of that,